Hey guys, Josh with the Right Coast Off-Road. Wanted to address something. I mean, probably about 5 times a week I'll get a phone call about removing the primary spring in your KRX. I have always told people don't do it. It's there for a reason, and I'm going to try to explain in this video why, and then we're going to do some runs on our 4-seater KRX with 35 stock weights with and without the primary spring. So this is a KRX clutch. This is a 77 clutch. It's been cleaned up and worked over a little bit, so this one does not have the markings on it, but this is a 77 clutch. It's kind of just a junk clutch. We did a little work to it, didn't like it, so that'll be the it'll show in our video. But yeah, so primary spring's installed. It's right there under the faceplate. And what that does, you can see how much pressure's on it. It takes a lot of pressure to move it. And how the primary spring works, so this is how your clutch sits at idle. Your belt's all the way at the very bottom, which is the lowest ratio for taking off. And as you speed up, the weight will push up on the roller and start to close the primary down into each other, and it'll run the belt up the sides of the sheaves and get you into a higher ratio until you reach full shift. Which you can't really see on this one because it's been cleaned up, but the top of the spotter will contact the faceplate on a lot of these clutches, but that's full shift. When you let off the gas or the throttle and the RPM start to drop, this spring that's installed here, you can see how it's got a lot of force back against it, so the weights in the spring are fighting each other 24/7. That's how CVT works. But when you let off the throttle, the spring starts to overcome the weights and open the primary back up so your belt can drop back down and get you in the correct ratio. That is important because without a primary spring, the clutch shifts up. There's nothing, if there's no spring there, there's nothing to get it back into the correct ratio. And then when you get back on the throttle, it's going to bog and take forever and put a lot of extra stress on the belt and overheat the belt. And it's kind of one of those things where it is what it is. I've said it 1,000 times, but I kind of wanted people to see it. So let me pop the spring out of this one, and then hopefully that'll give you a better idea, and then I'll show you some draggy runs with the primary spring in and the primary spring out. All right guys, so this is the same primary without the spring in it. There's the spring there, and you can already see when the spring's in there, it holds the clutch open so the belt can be in the lowest ratio and get you the correct starting ratio. But when there's no spring in there, that's what happens. So let's go back to how we were talking earlier. This thing's so sloppy without the spring in it. Hang on. So you start in this ratio here. As your engine RPMs increase, the weights will supposed to roll with the KRX clutch, roll against the roller and start to close the clutch in. So for example, if you just did like a 0 to 60 run, it's gonna pretty much be normal because you're on the throttle constantly. So you won't notice a huge performance decrease there, but where it gets you is, so you run up to 60, so that's full shift there. So let's just call it 60 miles an hour. You let off the gas, the spring would normally open the clutch back up, let the belt drop back down to the correct ratio, because the lower the belt is in here, the lower the ratio is. And then as the RPMs pick back up, it would start to close back together and push the belt up the side of the sheave faces there. So when you don't have it, it just kind of hangs out in no man's land. Your RPMs won't be correct. You'll get back on the throttle and the machine will bog down and put a ton of stress on the belt and then finally catch back up. Will it still function? Yes. Is it ideal? Absolutely not, and the performance really suffers. I can feel it by the seat of the pants. Anybody should be able to feel it by the seat of the pants, but like I said, we'll do a draggy run on video and show you. And I think the video will probably do like 15 to 40 miles an hour, so it'll be a rolling start, because that's where you're going to notice it. Like I said, if you do a 0 to 30, 0 to 50, 0 to 60, you're not going to notice it because you're constantly on the throttle. Where the performance suffers is you get on the gas and shift all the way up, and the spring should be there to close the clutch or open the clutch back up so the belt can drop back down to the correct ratio. But without that, it's just going to sit here and float around, and performance is really going to suffer. And the reason people do this is it lowers the RPM, the cruising RPM. And it does do that by, you know, 400 or 500 RPM maybe, sometimes a little bit more depending on tire size. But you're doing that at the expense of extreme wear on your belt and poor performance. So we'll get to that video. We're doing it on our 2023 KRX 1000 ES SE. It has a dyno-jet tuner. For this test, it's got stock weights, and one will be with the factory spring and one will be without the factory spring, and you guys will be able to see the difference. All right, guys, I know it's hard to hear me. This is primary spring in. I've got the draggy set to do 15 to 40. So I'm going to cruise at 13. So 3.67 from a roll, 15 to 40, primary spring installed. All right, guys, this is 15 to 40, no primary spring. 15 to 40, no primary spring. I'm gonna leap up to it, and then let's go. All right, 456. All right, guys, so you've seen the video. This was the phone. This is a screenshot of it that was used in the video here. This is primary spring installed. I'm trying to get it to focus, I'm sorry. 367, 15 to 40. And you always, when anybody shows you a draggy time, you always want to look for it to say verified. That way you can be sure they're not doing it downhill or trying to cheat it or anything. So best time, 15 to 40, primary spring installed, 367. And you've already seen the video, so now we'll go to primary spring removed. And again, that was just on the way back home. But the verified run, 15 to 40, 456. Primary spring removed. So hopefully this combined with your with how I explained it in the video, you can see that, you know, there was no point in doing a 0 to 30 or a 0 to 60 because it's going to be similar because the RPMs never drop. But when you're cruising and then you get back on the throttle, the clutch is not in the correct ratio without the spring, so performance really suffers. So you're putting a lot more load on the belt and a lot more load on the motor, and that's why the time, you can see there, 456. If it'll zoom in, 456, primary spring removed. That should be the proof, guys. Hopefully everybody watches this. You know, if you want to take your primary spring out, that's on you. I've just tried to explain it to a lot of people, and hopefully this video will help some folks out and let you make your decision. So thanks, guys. Click like and subscribe, and y'all have a good day.